So it turns out Sony may be the biggest hypocrites in the gaming industry, possibly ever. How's it going, everybody? Rival Indigo here, and this has been a developing story for weeks. I don't know, maybe months now, but definitely weeks. And something that just came out today really made me want to comment on it. Basically, Microsoft has been trying to purchase Activision Blizzard. This was announced either earlier this year or late last year, if I remember right. And this is a huge deal. It's a massive acquisition. Obviously, Activision Blizzard is the owners of Call of Duty and World of Warcraft and many other franchises and studios, and they publish an insane amount of games and pull in a lot of money. However, Sony, of course, has issue with this, and the biggest thing they're using as an argument is the fact that they're worried about Call of Duty being on Xbox exclusively. Microsoft has assured that is not their intention. They want to make tons of money off Call of Duty. I, of course, disagree with this idea. I'm a fan of exclusive games. I feel like they bring value to specific ecosystems, but I get where they're coming from. Whatever the case is, I don't have to agree with Microsoft and everything as an Xbox fan. But they're saying, hey, it's not going to be exclusive to our platform. We want it everywhere. Hell, we want it on Nintendo, because Call of Duty hasn't been on Nintendo in forever. They want to make tons of money, right? And so this game, for whatever reason, has become like the crux argument for Sony, because Call of Duty is, the biggest shooter in the world. It's freaking massive. But it's come to light that a lot of the things that Sony has been complaining about regarding this acquisition are in fact things they've been doing for many years, and we've always known it. That's the crazy thing, is that people are acting like this is somehow new information, that Sony pays to get exclusive rights to games. Why do you think Square Enix has always made so many exclusive games for PlayStation? Not just because, we hate Xbox. I mean, yeah, there is some bias against Xbox in Japan, but most companies are smart enough, if they're not owned by a console maker, to just put their games out wherever, because you can make more money, unless you're being paid not to. And a lot of times that upfront payment, that immediate cash, that can be more important to a company or a brand than sometimes having your game everywhere. Xbox is kind of known colloquially as a shooter and racer and sports game console. That's never actually been true, though. It's just that some of the most high-profile games were not allowed to be on Xbox. In fact, it recently surfaced that Sony had basically a contract when they would launch a game on their platform for, like, say, exclusivity, things like that, that they would require not only just 5 years of exclusivity, but things like hardware parity. Like, for instance, the Series X is actually more powerful than the PlayStation 5. And if you go back, the Xbox One X was the most powerful console at the end of that generation, far above even the PS4 Pro. And going back, the Xbox 360 in many ways was actually more powerful and more flexible than the PS3. The original Xbox was more powerful than the PS2. In fact, the only time really ever that a Sony console has been more powerful than an Xbox console was with the launch consoles for the PS4 and Xbox One. Anyways, setting that aside, what you have is a console that, even if it's only slightly, in whatever way that's tangible, slightly less powerful than the Series X, and yet they force developers to make games for their console and not allow them to optimize their game for the competitive console. So a developer could potentially make a game version for the PS5 and then go, oh wow, we've got like this over here, this bit of hardware, this extra, headroom to up our resolution, or maybe provide better frame rates or something like that, right, on the Series X. But if they're making a deal with Sony in any kind of way, Sony is requiring them not to do that. It's called console parity or hardware parity, whatever. That you make your game at a baseline for what would be good for our console, but you don't enhance it in any way for another. Now, we fairly often see that there is differences on multi-platform games. Occasionally you'll see one that runs, or maybe it loads a little bit better on PlayStation, but in many cases you'll see better frame rates and things like that on the Series X, and sometimes the Series S even. Anyways, the fact is, it's kind of shady. You are required, and not only that, okay, so to take it a step further, they would require things like exclusive content that couldn't launch on another console, sometimes forever. I mean, we've seen it, in fact, with Call of Duty for many years now. I mean, Call of Duty, it's kind of crazy, used to be synonymous with Xbox. I mean, Xbox really made Call of Duty big when it comes to console gameplay because of Xbox Live. But we've seen for years now, the PlayStation side of things, they will get exclusive maps or even entire game modes that will never come to Xbox, or sometimes have years of delay. And by that time, well, it's a Call of Duty game. There's one every year, so it doesn't matter. So Sony's been doing this forever, requiring console parity and exclusive features or content for like 5 years, you know, all these different things. It's kind of insane. So this comes out while Sony is over here bitching, excuse the language, but bitching about the possibility that, say, Call of Duty or other core franchises that are owned by Activision Blizzard and are multi-platform could end up with exclusive content and features, etc. on the Xbox platform. It's really hypocritical. You know, you have been doing this for years with many franchises, whether it's for a marketing campaign or whether it's for some sort of launch deal, whatever is going on. You've been doing this for many years. In fact, gatekeeping many franchises from ever launching certain games on Xbox as a platform. I mean, obviously they didn't do it with Final Fantasy 13, but like, how many Final Fantasy games didn't or will never launch on Xbox? You know, Final Fantasy 16 is rumored to be exclusive to PlayStation, at least for a launch period. Why does that happen? You know, the funny thing is, Xbox has actually been out with these things before. Well, I believe it was Rise of the Tomb Raider, where they came out and they said, hey, this game is going to be a launch exclusive on Xbox. Essentially, what everybody knew was Xbox paid Crystal Dynamics, or you know, whoever was publishing it, to put that game only on Xbox for a year. And in return, Xbox pays an upfront fee, which probably in a lot of ways actually helped get the game made and launched, because some of these games are getting really expensive. And there's many examples of that where I'm okay with that. Like I said, I'm a fan of exclusive games, but you can't complain about that being a possibility and be, you know, it come out that you've been doing this for many years in very extreme fashions, and you know, expect that to be an acceptable complaint about this acquisition. So, like I said, I'm okay with exclusivity. I'm okay with that being paid for from third parties or whatever. I mean, we saw it with Titanfall on Xbox One. That's like one of the highest profile ones I've seen from Xbox. And in that case, that game probably never sees the light of day if Microsoft doesn't step in and say, all right, we'll fund the completion of this game and everything, but we want it as an exclusive. All right, no big deal. I'm okay with that. It's part of the ecosystem. It's how it works. It's business, right? I feel like if you are a platform holder, you have every right to seek out great content that makes your platform more desirable. No problem there. Sony does it, Microsoft does it, but the way that Sony does it's kind of insidious, and then to turn around and complain about it when Microsoft could potentially do that. There's not even a guarantee that they would at this point, and they've guaranteed that for, I don't know, several years they'll continue they'll honor the deals that were already struck for Call of Duty on PlayStation. So it's a lot of hypocrisy. And then just to cap it all off, I find this interesting, and I'll probably wrap up with this. But just to cap it all off, it looks like Sony was going to have a games showcase here in October, which would be smart. It's a good time of the year to do it just before the big holiday season and everybody buying games and consoles and all that. And so I'm reading an article here from Game Rant, It just says Sony may not host its annual PlayStation showcase because it believes it could strengthen Microsoft's case with regulators that are currently scrutinizing its acquisition of Activision Blizzard King. A couple of regulators have already weighed in and approved it, but some, like the UK regulator, are taking a closer look. The core conflict of Microsoft's acquisition is Call of Duty, which it claims wouldn't be made exclusive, but Sony has said Microsoft's offer was not enough. Meanwhile, PlayStation fans have been eagerly awaiting a PlayStation showcase, and the two are connected per a recent insider. For the past few years, Sony has held a PlayStation showcase in September. Last year, for example, it showed off blah, 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 blah. That obviously didn't happen this year, and many rumors suggest, some are still pushing this rumor, but at least one person seems to suggest this won't be the case. Okay, I might have read that wrong, but anyways, moving on. It says, according to insider Millie A. Okay, also this is formatted poorly. Game journalism sites are kind of terrible. According to insider Millie A., who has a strong record, Sony was expected to announce the PS Showcase on October 11th, with it taking place on October 20th. A 9-day announcement window doesn't necessarily fit with Sony's past patterns, but then again, it broke the September pattern. Now here's the part why it probably isn't happening, or they would pushed it off. Sony was expected to reveal exclusive titles and first-party IP, like what leaked alongside the Horizon Zero Dawn remake with Kojima's Elle Fanning teaser, and the Silent Hill reveal taking place there too, before both obviously broke off. There's also suggestions by Yoshi P that Final Fantasy XVI would get a trailer in October, hinting at a potential PlayStation showcase. So the thing is, many of these could either be exclusives or be timed exclusives. I mean, I fully expect like Final Fantasy XVI to be an exclusive. This Kojima project could potentially be exclusive, and Silent Hill, at least timed exclusive. And it's funny because it says, as the CMA, which is the UK's regulator over there, investigates Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard, Sony doesn't want to give Microsoft any ammo for its counter-arguments. Indeed, Millie A. states plain as day that, quote, Sony believes a showcase will add weight to MS arguments, so Sony is, quote, holding firm for now. So the fact is, it says, the fact is, if Sony wants to reveal a bunch of exclusives, it's well in its right to. But the fact is, many of their exclusives tend to be third-party games. You know, people always talk about the exclusive stable of Sony, and they do. They have a lot of fantastic games that come out on that platform. Not many that are of interest to me, but the fact is they are great. But there are, in fact, a lot of them that are not in-house games. They're games that Sony, like big-time franchises, whether it's Final Fantasy, or possibly here Silent Hill, or something from Kojima, or whatever else they would announce, that would be essentially third-party games that they pay to have exclusive. And you can't exactly sit there and bitch about Microsoft having these exclusive franchises and exclusive features and content for those games when you're also coming out and showcasing a bunch of games that you paid to be exclusive to your platform. So I find it just kind of amusing, obviously as an Xbox fan, but in general, like, you can't really look at this and go, these guys aren't being hypocritical. It's really obvious, and they don't really have answers for it. And I feel like one way or the other, Microsoft's acquisition is going to go through. It's not going to hurt the gaming industry. I think it'll be really good for Activision Blizzard. They have a lot of issues over there, and I feel like under Phil Spencer that they would get a lot of that sorted out. He would get them into shape, and then the vast majority of these franchises will remain multi-platform. But yeah, maybe in a couple of years there's a big time Call of Duty game that comes out and it gets some sort of exclusive features or content for Xbox. I mean, that would be their prerogative as the owner of the franchise. But I just find when Sony fans have for years, exclusive content, and then Microsoft's like, all right, fine, we're going to get some exclusive content. Or at least we're going to have these games under our ownership so we can try to improve their quality and do these things with them, add these resources, and then put them on Game Pass. You know, the argument is like, oh my God, Game Pass would make it so we can't compete. Well, then you need to compete. One company offering a better product or service than you is not anti-competitive. That's supposed to push you to be more competitive. So that's one of the few things. I'm not a big fan of the CEO of Microsoft, but I agree with him. If you want competition, then let's have competition. He's exactly right in this case. So I'm not a fan of Hypocrisy, and certainly I've never been a fan of Sony, but like, it doesn't do them any favor when it comes out, when you prove to people why they dislike you. And being hypocrites is a big reason to dislike somebody.